introductions, John Paul, Sarah Thompson, Joe Wilson, and Barrett Taylor. All of you practically regulars on the show.
Like the Avengers.
Yeah, that's good. We need superhero uniforms for you. So you all have just been stripped away of any expert labels, and we have you here as citizens of the St. Louis region. I will open it up with a question, but based on how much you were all talking just now, you might.
No, Barrett was
talking.
We were listening.
So all I was saying is, I think institutionalized racism still exists. We still have a lot of issues in society, but the one thing I don't hear people talking about is what black people, what we don't do. We need to step our game up and think about the opportunities that we do have, and not maybe talk about race, and maybe work hard. And it's a hard thing to talk about.
What do you mean, not talk about race?
Well, I mean, it seems like we have all these opportunities today. You can go to college, you can get jobs, you can do all these things, but we keep on talking about race. Race is an issue, but we have to work hard.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think people do talk that way?
Because it's easy. It's a fallback. It's a crutch. Why don't we move on? There's more we can do. Race is going to be an issue.
But I would throw it out there, how come you don't know that you aren't responding to a different tone of how we talk about race, which is, it's really difficult to stand up and defend. We were talking about this earlier. I said, I go out sometimes and I don't know if someone's treating me badly, if it's because I'm black, if it's because my husband's white, or they just are having a bad day.
Or they don't like your curly hair.
Right, or they don't like my hair. But here's the thing, you don't know, and you're almost not ashamed, but you find it challenging to bring up racist arguments. And so I'm just throwing it back at you. How do you not know that the ability to focus and say within our community we've got to do this, and stop making excuses for ourselves isn't necessarily in response to you don't want to be the only one standing out there trumping that racism still exists? Because it's a hard place to be when you are saying
I think there's another angle is that I can't believe, I thought I was going to just completely agree with you, but there's one thing is that I believe that legacy has a major play in everything, our background. I can't escape my parents, I can't escape my background. I happen to be, I think I'm Asian. Maybe I don't sometimes, but it's one of those things that I was born in a family that had certain attitudes, that had a certain background, had a certain culture that helped me succeed. And I think that because of legacy of whatever background you come from, it also hinders you. So maybe it's not just that. I've had friends that.
But I think he's got a point. If you grow up in a community where the most you can aspire to is something still small and within your neighborhood, and you're not going to be bringing in a lot of money. If you don't see people like you being a success in the world, it becomes much more difficult for you to imagine yourself being a success later on in life. So the more you see the people around you, this is about as high as you can get in the world. You stop looking for things beyond
At that first table, I love the quote of a lot of people are born on third base and think they hit a triple. That's kind of what came to my mind in that first table. Are you guilty of that very same thing in what you're saying right
What do
here?
you mean?
That perhaps racism isn't the same factor in your life that it might be for someone else.
Or let me reframe the question, is that
Please.
if I can do a better job.
Please, thank you.
It's basically, just kidding, JC. That you came from parents that had a culture that they had in your home that helped you succeed.
My parents were first-time college graduates. Both my grandma and my grandfather were both born in Mississippi, sharecroppers, had no college education. My grandma and my grandma on my father's side had no college education. But the thing they did instill in my parents is that through hard work you can get things. Both parents went to Washington University, and they instilled those same things in me, that you work hard for what you get. With Asians, I know quite a few Asian people who come over here, don't speak any English, they work hard, work several jobs, and they work until they get something. Black people, we do have a strong history of working hard and achieving things. We still can pick those things up and still can achieve today. We have to realize it's going to be a challenge.
But I think that what we're saying is that your family did have that culture.
We lived in, it was not always there.
But
there's other families that don't have that at all.
Yes.
So how do we build it up?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Because we know race is going to be there. We know it's going to be an issue.
I would ask, I think it'd be great I would love to talk to your parents about that. Like, how did they become, my father never graduated from junior high. My mother was educated, but that was, so I'd kind of both sides. But both of them were driven and hardworking. And so I did have that. I like to find out from your parents, like, how did they achieve that and get beyond that?
Well, I also want to just kind of bring it back to where the show, we started off with Mr. Percy Green, who's here, and we talked about the Jefferson Bank demonstrations, which were asking for 4 jobs for African Americans. And the whole premise behind that was so African American men and women, but men, can work and provide an honest living for their families, right? We are where we are today. Now, I ask you the same question, which is, what are the job situations today? When people look at crime, look at this, want to point all these fingers, have we made that progress? So yes, there are African Americans working throughout St. Louis, but if you scratch beneath the surface, not that much has changed. And I think that kind of brings it back to 50 years later. Yes, there are black tellers. Yes,
We famously had the BBC doing a story about how we have a racial divide along Delmar in our city.
Well, I think for me it gets down to when we try to tie it back to 1963, 2013. I think for me it's saying, like, can people, regardless of race, still have an equal opportunity to provide for their families? And I think if we focused on those questions, we all have our different experiences, we come up with particularly an answer of yes or no.
I don't like that question though, because I don't know how to define equality.
Going back to the Jefferson Bank thing, I think we settle for too much. We can get jobs as a teller, but we don't own the banks.
Well, that was part of it too, though. It was, beyond that.
That's where the
specific
money's at. There's no money in being a teller. The money's in owning the bank.
But in 1963, the idea.
I'm talking about today, though.
Today, no, but.
He talked about tokenism. When we go in there, we can get our money exchanged from a black teller, but we need to be owning the banks in black communities.
Absolutely. And are we?
No.
So then we get back to the question, does racism still exist today, and in what forms? And when we look at jobs, you're sitting there quietly over there. But
It's okay.
Do you think a black person can own a bank
I think
today? Meaning
Yes.
I think yes, of course. I think
Okay.
we have the ability to do it.
okay. Meaning I'm sorry. I should
In the
rephrase it.
environment.
The environment, the opportunity to actually do
We
it.
do have black entrepreneurs who do many different things in St. Louis and across the country.
Yeah. I'm just asking.
No,
a
sure.
question.
Yeah.